effect to Section 120 of the Constitution, and also to enhance the exercise of oversight over the provincial executive on the provincial budget. I think that is very important, and also to enhance public participation on amendment of the money bills. And therefore, Section 4 of that bill establishes the Committee on the Budget of the Provincial Legislature, and Section 5 actually states the functions of the committee itself. So if we are looking at the BRRR within the context of oversight in particular, one needs to give context to that oversight. For example, there are certain issues that we can deal with when we look at the amendment of the budgets that are presented before the provincial legislature. One of the things could be about uprooting poverty, reducing unemployment, and promoting equality among the people of South Africa. And also, the other thing that we can look at is the promotion of economic growth within the province itself, so that we can deal with those three issues that I've mentioned above, but also most importantly, service delivery to the people of the Eastern Cape. These are some of the things that would give context in terms of how you view the budget that is presented before the committees of the provincial legislature, and also and be critical about how they have packaged the budget in relation to those matters. But I think there needs to be consensus on these policy matters as well, in terms of wanting to do these things. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this presentation really, it is to impart some knowledge and experience of this process in Parliament, thus promoting a better understanding of the process, and also to help in the drawing up of the budgetary review and recommendations report by the provincial legislature. Next slide. In terms of oversight, I think what members need to understand, even our colleagues in administration, is that oversight, it is a constitutional mandate, and for the legislators to scrutinize and oversee the exercise of the executive action. That comes from the fact that the legislators actually pass legislation for the executive to implement. When we pass the legislation, we also expect to actually see that what we have passed is actually done by the executive as well. So Section 114(2)B provides for the provincial legislatures to maintain oversight over the exercise of the provincial authority, including the implementation of legislation and any other organs of the state in the province in this context. So one of the functions of oversight is actually to hold the executive to account on how monies are spent. And a committee or members of the legislature need to understand that they actually participate in the process to pass the budgets that are actually presented before you. So it is important to look at how these budgets are structured in order to accomplish the set objectives as well. They need to ensure the policies announced by the provincial executive and passed by the provincial legislature are actually delivered. So this is just one aspect of oversight, I must say, because we are looking at the budget, but we can also look at other things in terms of the non-financial aspect of delivery to the people. So in a sense that, how do they use this money that we are passing as a legislature to actually meet those objectives when we go out to communities and there was a budget, for example, to say that we are going to provide water to certain areas, for example, especially the most remote rural areas as well. Did that happen and things like that? So we need to sort of monitor the improvements in the lives of people, but using the budget to actually do that as well. So we need to improve transparency in government operations and enhance public trust in government, including provincial government as well. That is very crucial. If members of the community do not feel that government is delivering with regards to their needs, the public trust actually goes down. We actually, in the past 2 days, we had a change management process. And in that, we were presented with a slide that shows that South Africans are beginning to lose trust in Parliament in particular, for example, and certain reasons were put there. That kind of information is very important so that we can actually improve on how we do things so that the public trust can also go up at all times. So if departments and provincial departments are not delivering on the promises made, it means that people's trust would actually go down as well. So we need to try and avoid that situation as much as possible. So the provincial committees then had to scrutinize the budget. Scrutinizing of the budget is actually one of the oversight activities the provincial legislature undertakes to oversee the actions of the executive. Next slide, please. So the Money Bills Amendment Procedure, number 6 of 2020, was actually intended to provide a procedure to amend bills before the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, and the purpose of amending the money bills is to ensure that the provincial budget is responsive to the needs of the people of the Eastern Cape. I think one important word in that second bullet is that the budget needs to be responsive to the needs of the people of the Eastern Cape. So if government says that we're going to eradicate the pit latrines, for example, in schools, and then the budget should also reflect the intention to do so in order to enable the provincial legislature to monitor that, the use of or the spending on those on that objective, so that we can see whether we're moving forward or we are stagnating as well. So I think I've mentioned the objectives of the Act, so let's move to the next slide, please. So Section 5 of the Act deals with the functions of the Budget Committee. So the Budget Committee policy statement, it evaluates budget estimates, economic and budget policies and programs with direct outlays. And that includes considering and reporting on the division of revenue bill, provincial socio-economic outlook and fiscal policy, the actual expenditure published by the provincial treasury, the actual revenue published by the provincial treasury as well, and the recommendations of the Financial and Fiscal Commission on the National Division of Revenue Budget, the recommendations of the Financial and Fiscal Commission of the Eastern Cape. I must say that the difference with how we are doing this in Parliament, if we compare it with this budget committee as well, the difference is that in Parliament we have two committees per house that are dealing with the policy issues. That will be the Standing Committee on Finance and the Standing Committee on Appropriations in both houses. So they actually deal with the policy matters, the issues around the Fiscal Commission, Financial and Fiscal Commission, and also the outlook, the economic outlook and fiscal policy issues. And then the portfolio committees will then look at the actual budget as it is presented by the various departments. And also in the NCOP, that is the select committees, they do not look at the actual budget as in numbers, but they look at policy related matters and whether that budget actually responds to it. So the report of committees of the NCOP are quite different from the reports of the portfolio committees in the National Assembly. So, but in the provincial legislature context, it does seem like everything is actually done by the budget committee with regards to these matters, especially if we look at Section 5 of the bill itself. Next slide, please. Section 5 of the bill actually provides for the functions of the budget committee, and it says that it must receive reports on the budget from portfolio committees and must consider the total aggregates and invite portfolio committee members to its meetings when considering cluster matters, but also to make recommendations to the House of budget allocation, which is something that is also different from Parliament, National Parliament, in a sense that when we write the budgetary review and recommendations report, each committee actually produces this report and they are sent to the House for consideration. So it becomes a long process for Parliament. Here, it seems like the various committees, as it is depicted in the next slide perhaps, the various portfolio committees will engage with the budget, but then their reports are then taken to the budget committee, which actually needs to consider portfolio reports and write its own report and make recommendations to the House, instead of the portfolio committees going straight and sending their reports for consideration by the House. So this slide is just a representation of what is actually said in the Act at the moment. So next slide, please. What is important, again, as part of the democratic processes of our country, that is the public participation. So the provincial legislature committees actually must seek the views of the members of the public in whatever they do. So they need to then decide on the method of eliciting the views of the public. For example, it can advertise calling for submissions or any other means possible to it. In Parliament, I must say, when we consider this issue, usually there is a time constraint between the 4 committees that I mentioned earlier. You will find that the work that is done very quickly by these 4 committees, because things have to be done by the NA committee and then referred to the NCOP committee and then back to the NA and back to the NCOP as well. And we find that in that time, there is little time for these committees to engage members of the public. So the way that we do it here in Parliament, we send out an advert requesting members of the public to actually make submissions to Parliament, and that the submissions that we receive will then be considered by the committees when they're looking at the various budgets. So the question is, how does the budget committee ensure that public participation is meaningful, basically? Because in whatever we do, we are looking for a meaningful public participation as well. What does that mean? Because it means that whatever members of the public are submitting to the committee, those members must be aware and understand what is proposed or what is actually sent to them, and then so that they can respond meaningfully in terms of the submissions to the committee itself. We don't want a situation where members of the public will say, we support the budget or we don't support the budget. Because in that context, you don't really understand what is it that they are agreeing with, what is it that they are not agreeing with. So it is important for members of the public to say that with this budget that is presented before us, if it's not dealing with, for example, the building of houses or whatever, so I cannot agree with it, especially if we're looking at villages and things like that. So it must be responsive to what people of that particular province actually want. And if the priority in the province is about building more houses, and people must know that whether this budget is actually taking into consideration that or not, so that they can say, well, we cannot support a budget that does not respond to this particular priority as well. The next slide, please. So this next slide, Chairperson, is really more important for the writers of the report, which means that the researchers in the committee, if they are content advisors and the committee secretaries, when they come together and look at the information, this is how they need to structure it, because these are the things that you would like to see in the report before you can engage with. Basically, it is about the introduction, but also most importantly, to give an overview of key policy focus areas for the province. But also at national level, and then sort of go down to the provincial areas as well. You can look at the NDP and also the province-specific key policy documents, medium-term strategic framework, and the key strategic issues from SOPA, for example, and any other thing that is going to assist the committee with regards to the key policy issues. And also, you can look at the report of the Auditor General, just to go back to what the Auditor General said about issues in the past and whether these are actually catered for in the next financial year. Next slide, please. We're still looking at the structure of the BRRR report, and we look at the financial overview, which is looking appropriation statement, which then is translated into various figures in various terms as well. And looking at the expenditure at program level, where it's actually a reflection on expenditure per program and reflect on irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. And the performance overview, reflecting on the overall performance for a financial year, and state targets in numbers achieved or not achieved, and performance per program, and noting issues raised by the members of the provincial legislature as well. Next slide. What is also important is that when engaging with the budget, the committee must make its own observations. And so that the next time that a budget is presented to the provincial legislature, the committees can actually go back and say, these are the issues that we have raised in the previous budget.
Whilst we are waiting for her, honorable members, I hope that you are noting questions that you will ask from her. And this is an indication that maybe also we might not collapse the discussions after her presentation. we will have to go straight to discussions of her presentation, so that by the time we lose her completely, we will be covered if we have not lost her completely now. I'm just praying that she comes. And then the other order that we are going to follow after that is that all the other presentations are going to be done at once, which means there will be no discussions after them. That is, we will give to the FFC to come and make presentations. And then after that, there will be the consideration of the provincial budget by the provincial budget, which deals with the provincial budget cycle. That will be done by the provincial treasury. And then after that, we will then take the legislature budget oversight cycle by Dr. Myataza and Advocate Beja. I like that partnership. And then after that, it will be the implications and challenges for the Eastern Cape legislature done by the Secretary of the Legislature. Then we will come to discussions after that. We will come to discussions after that. So it will need our concentration and us to note all the issues that we would like to raise in all those presentations that will come at once. I will allow people that during the presentations feel tired and need to stretch, that stand up and stretch. I will understand that our age demands that. Those that are in this category, this level, the level that I'm in. So we will deal with it that way. What we will also do, I think what we can also do whilst we are waiting for her, it means that we are going to be haphazard in a way, because I'm afraid that we wait and yet she doesn't come back. I don't know. But I just hope that Dr. Myataza and our team are linking with her telephonically to check if the possibility of her coming back is. In the meantime, let me make this announcement, honorable members and colleagues, whilst we are waiting for that, because it was going to be made at the end of the program. Chair of Chairs, this is the only announcement that I have. If there are other announcements that you have from your office, you can hand them to me. The announcement is about the Africa Day celebrations tomorrow. That will be conducted through the webinar, and they start at 8. I hope by the end of the day, if that has not already happened, the link for honorable members and community members and all other stakeholders will be sent to them and to us via our emails and also in the social networks for people to link out there with the webinar itself. We are rich because we do have accounts on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. There are many on TikTok. We're told in one platform that everybody must have the TikTok thing, but please don't dance there. Yeah, don't dance in the TikToks and play these things that are played. Play very relevant messages about our legislature and our important things. I can see that Honorable Pile, your hand is very up. So there is that announcement for tomorrow, honorable members.
Honorable Chair, I want to say it's only 3 slides left in the whole presentation. Say 80% of this presentation has been completed. So you can proceed in a way. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Nganibona nhle lapha wena ndiphethwe. So kufuneka ndiphatheke. I can't just do. Thanks very much, Sosi, for that directive. We are then going to take the next presentation, which is is it the provincial treasurer? No, or the FFC. We're going to take the FFC, and then immediately after that, the provincial treasurer must come. And then the legislature presentations will follow after that. I will give each presentation, the actual presentation, not more than 8 minutes. 8 minutes are too far, are too much. You can even do that thing, man, in 3 minutes. But please come. But it doesn't mean that don't emphasize on areas where you want to emphasize, but don't emphasize everywhere. I think what we are going to do is that what we can connect for Dr. Kanyeza for are questions when she is available, are questions. Because as already indicated, it's very few that she had not done with, but fortunately, we have the slides with us as well. So members can go through those slides, the 3 remaining slides, and then it be communicated to her that she be on standby for the period, for the time. She will only come during the time when we deal with questions now, because of that. Doc, we are requesting that let the members deal with the 3 slides that were left. Let's read them through. But you must be on standby for questions. Now we're going to allow all the presentations to go on because we have to be out of here by 1 o'clock. So after those presentations, you will be included on the time of questions during that time. So they will also link with you if you are cut again when we get into the question time. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And sorry for the
Thank you so much.
inconvenience. Thank you. Over to you. FF. Okay. Tatu Jonas, delegateanga namhlanje. Bamba ngokwakho. Yes. Yes. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon to honorable members and colleagues. So with this presentation, I'm sure it will be flighted. We just want to cover two things quickly with the time that is allocated. And I think the presentation that came before this one gave a good context or a good bridge into this presentation where we wherein we just outline what we propose as a framework of what the FFC can do to assist the budget committee together with the budget unit in terms of executing its responsibilities, that is responsibilities around oversight and amendment. So One of the things that came out yesterday was around the research cycle or the research workflow, that it's a national one. Yes, it is a national one, and yeah, we are intending to, as we continue to work to develop a provincial one that is specific to the Eastern Cape. But the national one is the one that it's a guiding. It's just a guiding research workflow, but it's a dynamic one rather than a static one. But where, Chair, I want to go quickly is around the provincial budget assessment framework that we are proposing as the FFC, but it's not limited to the issues that we highlight here. Part of the issues that we think would be important and that we can contribute towards the budget committee and the budget unit is assisting the budget committee with analysis that looks at equitable share, the allocation of revenue. And here we intend to do analysis that, an assessment that looks at unpacking the provincial and local government equitable share allocation. And here we look at things such as the formula, you know, what changes are there. That's what we can assist the committee by doing, that we can do such an analysis. What changes are there? We heard yesterday that the formula is largely driven by the population, but it seems to disadvantage provinces that have an outward migration pattern, but and favor those that have an inward. So we can look at things like that and make some recommendations around that. And in the past, we have looked at this formula and made some recommendations. So these are things that we can do to assist the budget committee in its functions. We can also look at things such as you know, the impact, what changes, the changes, what will be their impact on the provincial equitable share, and things like that. But we can also look at things such as the conditional grant for both provincial and local government, and we can look at the financial performance and tracking of these grants. Yesterday, there was mention around the issue that there was an allocation of a conditional grant which was then returned to National Treasury. And we can do an analysis that shows the performance or the trend and be able to dig deeper to understand what are the drivers of this underperformance and what interventions can be done, so that we do not realize at the end that we didn't spend as a province and then it now has to go back to Treasury. Because there are many reasons which can drive underspending in these conditional grants. Some include the design of the conditional grants, which may make it difficult for the province to spend, but also the capacity is one other reason that can affect the ability to spend these grants. So we'll also be looking at provincial taxes. This is just a broad framework, but also looking at whether these provincial taxes or they adhere to the norms and standards which are prescribed by the money bills. We'll also be looking at provincial loans. This also touches on you know, the issue because the Constitution does allow provinces and municipalities to borrow for capital and bridging finance. So we heard yesterday that there is this tension around the funding of infrastructure and its relation to growth. So we can look at such things. I'm moving right along. We can also look at cooperative governance, the oversight and support responsibility of national and provincial towards municipalities, and we can look at what are the challenges there, what solutions can we suggest, or recommendations that we can make. This is above the one that the national recommendations that we make, which also touch on provinces and touches on municipalities, but we can assist the budget committee with that. But we can also assist the budget committee in terms of municipal loans. You know, I think there is now municipalities are allowed to pledge some of their grants. We can look at such things and assist the budget committee in terms of appraising itself with these trends, what is happening, and if there are any risks to the provincial budget, and whether how the budget should be allocated. So we can assist with such an analysis in terms of that. But what we want to emphasize in terms of concluding remarks, Chair, I think I'm still on time, is fiscal oversight and accountability go hand in hand. So while we support the committee to ensure oversight, there should be accountability by those who are tasked with spending of public resources. So we will try and support the committee in terms of exercising its function of oversight and monitoring. And then we want to mention that provincial legislature scrutiny of the budget should be seen as an ongoing or a year-long process rather than a once-off. And this has implications. It means that the budget committee can be able to call us as the FFC at any point to say, can you please come? We want to understand a particular grant, or want to understand a particular allocation, its trend and its expenditure, then we can be able to come to give that support to the budget committee so that it exercises its duty. So it should not be seen as a once-off where we come when there is a budget, a provincial budget to be delivered, but it should be seen as a year-long thing where we are called at different intervals. And then lastly, Chair, because I don't want to go through, is that legislature can improve accountability by strengthening support and by strengthening and supporting institutions, supporting democracy. And this relates to why we take this opportunity, that as one of the institutions that are supporting democracy, particularly when it comes to issues of public finance, we accept this opportunity of working together with the budget committee, together with the budget unit, where we can leverage on each other's skills, leverage on each other's expertise to support the committee so that our democracy continues to flourish. So, Chair, those are some of the broad contours or broad framework that we are proposing, but it's not limited to this. The budget committee can at any time contact the FFC to come and give whatever support that is required in terms of technical expertise, and we will be able to come and do that. So thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next presentation from the finance, fiscal? Because we are going to then, you can come? We are then going to have questions and clarities after all the presentations. So we will have the next presentation now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members, colleagues from FFC and from the Parliamentary Budget Office, colleagues from legislature and then provincial treasurer. Probably, whilst we are still trying to find the presentation, quickly just to agree perhaps with what was proposed here, Honorable Chair, particularly by Honorable Timbaza, I think made a point that this workshop should be extended to the executive and the issue is. I also believe that the executives, they first become members of this house. And then they carry the mandate of this house. Then they execute, and they are in charge in terms of the plan. But I think it's important,